This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
GPS, for a second, I thought that my constant internet troubles had bled over to you behind the orange curtain, but apparently not, huh?
No, we're good down here. I'm sorry to hear that you've been having those troubles. I've certainly been involved in a few conversations and heard your tales of woe today. Well,
yesterday you should have seen the flurry of activity.
Oh, I did. He left me on the group chat, even though you had told him that I was going home. He asked me to set up Zoom for you as though he believes I live in your home.
I was going to say, Gary, can you come down? Can you come over here to my office?
Bounce off the 5 heading south and go down into the basement and see if you can get Mark's Zoom working. Like, what are you talking about, bud? But, you know, those are... there you go. There's 3 minutes of references to people that no one in the audience has any idea about. So I'm sure they'll be super upset with me again. So, Mark, I without getting into too much detail, I have a bit of a bone to pick with you. The hotel holdings have expanded, and you've been keeping this from us. How dare you?
Oh, are you talking New Orleans?
Yes, sir, I am, and we're already planning a field trip.
I have no doubt, Gary, that you will be in New Orleans before I will.
Well, somebody's got to do quality assurance. Come on. I go where the work is, Mark, as previously stated on this fine podcast.
It's exactly right. Gary is head of quality control.
Yeah, exactly.
You never made it to Capri this year, did you?
I've never made it to Capri any year, but that's just because I've not found my way out to New York since my little one got here, unfortunately. But sooner rather than later, I'm gonna have to get out there. So maybe that'll be in the future.
I love it. Maybe you can do kind of a triangle.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like fun.
Speaking of triangles, we've had quite a week this week. I mean, I had if we had taped this on Wednesday evening, I would have told you I was starting trial on Thursday and picking a jury. If you had asked us on Wednesday, we would have said Trump was headed for a hearing in D.C. on Thursday before the election that was going to have evidence related to what is presidential and what isn't. And we would have been doing on Wednesday a preview of the Trump sentencing in New York State Court in front of Judge Merchan. So
now, as we sit here on Saturday, 0 for 3.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Yes, it's been a crazy week. And that's actually not everything that's been circling the office in the past 5 days or so. But those are the big 3 that I think we'll touch on here.
Yeah. So for those who are wondering about what I'm talking about with Biden, we, 3 months ago or whatever, when I was hired to try the tax case, and we had gone through that and prepared and we're ready to try it. And
I'm sorry, Mark, just to clarify for some of the audience, because we only vaguely alluded to it. You're talking about Hunter Biden, and that is who you're referencing in the trial that you thought you were going to be going into on Thursday morning to pick a jury.
Yeah. In fact, I was in another federal courtroom yesterday, as we taped this, it's yesterday, Friday, and Her Honor I was actually chuckling because we were supposed to have picked a jury Thursday and Friday. And as luck would have it, I was in the courthouse anyway on Friday because Hunter ended up electing to plead open. And as I first tried to do what's called an Alford plea, for those who aren't in the weeds, an Alford plea is many years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court said you could plead to the charges in an indictment and maintain your innocence. And that's what Hunter tried to do. And before the judge was able to make a decision, he changed and said everything was over the objection of the special counsel, entered a plea to all of the counts. And then we spent a good 2 hours because the very special counsel wouldn't allow or engage on a factual basis. So the special counsel actually spent 2 hours reading a 56-page indictment. And if you can talk about watching paint dry, that may have been the most painful 2 hours of listening to somebody drone on that I've ever endured in my career.
Well, I can tell you.
In fact, I may have told somebody that only in 41 years, the only time I've heard anybody who didn't waive reading the indictment was generally somebody who was later adjudicated to either be incompetent or 5150.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, people were so certain that this jury selection is going to happen that as late as 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, somebody in the office invited me to come and sit in the courtroom on Thursday, and I said no, thank you. And based on your retelling of it, I'm very glad I didn't.
Yeah, and so back to the story. Friday, I was in the courthouse anyway. They had, for some reason, closed down the Civic Center on Friday. Literally from the diocese down past the federal court, past the criminal courts building and in the other direction. And I may have been engaging in a conversation with a bench officer about the fact that nobody had been alerted to that. And what if we had been still picking a jury on Friday? What would the situation have been in downtown LA in the Civic Center at that point? Because the left hand never knows what the right hand is doing. And for those of you who are wondering, the reason I think for the change of heart and was given the fact that there was a multitude of factors, but given the Hunter's belief that his defense had been eviscerated by the motions that were granted by the special counsel. Number one, the jury wasn't going to hear that he had paid his taxes. I mean, you're going to sit there for 3 weeks, talk about he was willfully, the highest mens rea there is, trying to evade paying taxes. And in fact, he had paid taxes before he was indicted, that you weren't going to hear that he was not going to be allowed to put on an addiction expert. So that was going to be excluded. He was not going to be able, or except with very fine distinctions, able to put on a tax expert as to the tax issues involved in the case, that they were not going to be restricted from calling his children basically as witnesses, that in fact he would not be able to talk about the death of his brother during this time period and the trauma of his mother and sister.
He couldn't even allude to it?
He could allude to it in a timeline, but not talking about it related to the addiction. Because this is talk about chicken or egg. You can't prove that has anything to do with his sobriety or failure of sobriety or addiction, but you also can't provide where you're not allowed to put on an addiction expert. So
yeah, it's, that doesn't, as a parent, the kids might be enough just as it is, but when you add in the 6 other ingredients and that allude comment from me, people can go to Mark's Twitter feed. I was trying to make Mark laugh because he gave a little schooling to the meaning of specific words this morning on Twitter, and me and a few of my cohort thought that was very humorous.
Well, it was somebody trying to be a
faceless, nameless smartass, but they weren't smart. And they were just being stupid. And I just love the fact that you educated them.
Well, we're here for teachable moments.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was interesting this week, as we mentioned, was Judge Mershon, who was the judge who presided over the what's called the hush money trial, even though it really wasn't a hush money trial, involving Stormy Daniels, who was the star witness in the state court. Interestingly, this week, a spokesperson for the Southern District was apparently caught in a tape conversation while engaging in some flirtatious activity. And in the tape conversation, I don't know if you saw this, Gary, the spokesperson for this Southern District, and by the way, I feel for this person because, the last thing you want, it's been many years since whatever. But the last thing you want is to have a private conversation surreptitiously played when you're in a kind of a sensitive situation like this. And this person was caught on tape apparently calling that prosecution. How should I put this gently?
Well, if you give me about 20 seconds, we can play it and you don't have to surmise it yourself at all. Actually, this is a 13-minute video, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to come up with the exact moment, but I'll keep looking. You go ahead.
Anyway, so this poor gentleman, I think it was a gentleman, was on tape minimizing the prosecution itself. Well, in any event, the Judge Mershon, they were supposed to do the sentencing and a couple of other preliminary matters pre-sentencing the next week, I believe. Yes. He has now postponed that until after the election. Hunter's sentencing is after the election. And then there also, the last component of this we were talking about was the Judge Jenkins hearing in the Washington, D.C. Circuit or District Court. And she has now indicated that she is not going to be driven by the election, even though Trump's lawyer was talking about it. But it looks like that is not going to, that evidentiary hearing, if there's going to be one, or the hearing where there's going to be a kind of a parsing of what was presidential second branch and what wasn't, is not going to happen anytime soon as well.
Yeah, so it appears that everything is, more or less everything that could be of consequence is being punted down the road, if that's a correct understanding of it.
Yeah, well, there's those who would say that's a good thing, because now, between now and the election, and obviously the debate on Tuesday, there isn't going to be a lot of distractions or extraneous issues. They can focus on the issues. It's more of a political observation, but the legal may not be in the way. By the way, speaking of the last one that we haven't talked about, you had sent me something this week on the last Trump prosecution, related to the last Trump prosecution, that a body-worn camera was circulated involving the Georgia prosecutor.
Yes, it was. I can play a little bit of it for you here. I don't know that we need to play the whole 2 minutes or so, but
no, if you want to set it up, and because you found it, I'll let you set it up and play whatever just to show it, and then we can talk about it on the other side.
Yeah. So basically, Fani Willis, who everyone here might remember, who was the special prosecutor in Fulton County, who eventually had to fire her alleged boyfriend, who she had hired to be a consultant on the case, even though he had questionable levels of experience and expertise in the matter. She claimed that they had not had a relationship at the time, and if they had a relationship, it had been long in the past, and that they had since broken up. Fani Willis's daughter, who I believe was pregnant at the time, which doesn't really matter, but is in fact true, was pulled over.
Matters. She's going to be a grandma.
No, that's true. That's true. So there is not only a maternal instinct, but a grand maternal instinct is at play as well. The daughter was pulled over. They ran her, I believe, for speeding. They ran her tags, and they found out that she was driving on a suspended license. So she was taken for processing, and they presumably called her mother to come and retrieve her vehicle, and she showed up with none other than So this is them sort of arriving and meeting the officers on the scene. In a second, you're going to see.
And is that Fani that's in the middle? So that's,
I believe in the middle there is the daughter who is being arrested. And then now she looks
like her from a distance, looks like her mother. Yeah?
Yes, correct. And then she has since been taken away now. And here is Fani and Nathan walking up and introducing themselves to the police officers. They are not there to, I've turned the sound down because it's not, really great audio, but they are there not to try to obstruct anything, but they have presumably been summoned to collect the vehicle. so that it does not have to be impounded. So they have some questions and some back and forth about why she was pulled over and, what they can do with the car, when she'll be able to get out, how much the fine may be. And
how uncomfortable is that one cop who's on camera?
Yeah, he's not pleased because I think that he maybe has a bit of an inkling that the camera in question might one day come out.
Might be focused right on him, and that the video that's being taken is going to give him a starring role in a movie that he didn't sign a release for.
Yeah, exactly. And that just to me, that informs his opinion of the person from whom the camera, or to whom the camera was mounted.
Yeah, exactly. His own partner is throwing him under the proverbial patrol car.
It appears to be his superior. Based on the context of the conversation, it looks like the person who is wearing the camera is a level above the officers who initiated the stop, and the officer who did initiate the stop is no longer even there. He has since taken Fani's daughter off to whatever facility to be processed, and he is simply there to supervise the handoff of the vehicle. So by the way,
whenever you think about Fani Willis or Nathan Wade, can we talk again about the bullshit, excuse my French, of impounding vehicles and taking people away for driving offenses? I mean, it's so irksome to me. I just don't understand it. It's such a cycle of idiocy.
Yeah, it is. And it's just an unjust tax, I would say. I mean, it's, because ultimately all that's doing is costing people money that they probably don't need to be cost. Well,
and generally it targets people who can ill afford it, and you
exactly.
Make it or you just compound the issue. I mean, if there was ever an offense that should be a show proof, that should be a show proof. By the way, as a practical matter, at least in jurisdictions here in California, as long as it's not DUI related, and if it's an expired license or if it's a suspension for failure to do something like show proof of some kind, it should just be a show proof fix-it ticket, in my humble opinion. Otherwise, it just compounds matters for no reason. And if you think I'm minimizing this, go down to a traffic court sometime and watch what happens down there in the teeming masses of humanity that are just trying to get by and having to be dragged into a traffic court for these kinds of things. You should be able to show proof online and just be done with it.
In a perfect world, that would be nice. I will, to a certain extent, say kudos to the officers in this case who were able to contact next of kin so that the car didn't need to be impounded. But I've been to one of those traffic courts before, and you're right. It is not hard to surmise upon entry that a lot of these people, the last thing they need is some sort of a fine levied against them. And it just, as you said, compounds the issue.
Yeah, it compounds the issue, and it becomes a endless cycle of not getting out from under. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Couldn't agree more. Mark, thank you very much for making some time on a Saturday, as I have some conflicts on a Sunday, as do you. You've been on a media whirlwind tour, so you've got calls to make and Zooms to attend, and I've got some stuff to do with the family. So thank you for being flexible this weekend, and I'm sure the audience appreciates it.
And stay cool, Gary. It's good. It's blazing this weekend.
It's absolutely bonkers. For anyone who is who maybe can hear the hum of the fan that is pointing at my legs right now, I am sorry, but I just cannot survive under these lights without some form of cooling. It is just brutal in Southern California. So you stay cool.
And
as
by
well,
the way,
Mike.
We will have comment of the week next week because with any luck, Gary, I'm told the swag is on its way.
Well, breaking news on that front, not only sweatshirts, but we ordered this time in the dead of summer heat, so T-shirts as well. So it'll be a dealer's choice as to what people would like. So that's a nice little bonus and a nice little upgrade for those who may not want a sweatshirt right here as we get through the tail end of summer.
Thanks, Gary. Always good to see you on the weekend.
You as well, Mark. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.